All right. Deep breath. I'm going to get started on some of your Bethyl asks. Let's get going. Drew Mall 03 says, just thought I'd share these cute pictures of my cat sitting on my book with Bethyl edits in the background, LOL. I love it. I love having Beth in the background, and your kitty obviously wants to be the center of what you're doing. Typical kitty cats, though, right? Very cute. Thank you for sharing that. All right, next one. By the way, no one is asking the important questions here. How is it that every character in the apocalypse has perfect eyebrows? And women rarely have hair on their bodies except maybe for the arms. I can barely keep my eyebrows in check in our normal society. I strive to get what they have. Yeah, I mean, this is really more of a Hollywood thing than anything else, because even in present day or places where there aren't an apocalypse, they still tend to wake up with perfectly curled hair and perfect makeup and everything. The other thing I was noticing is that they do have Denia wearing a lot of eyeliner in The Ones Who Live. I didn't notice it on Michonne quite as much. I mean, I'm sure she's usually wearing it, but it seemed like it was more pronounced. And yeah, same thing. She basically came out of the lake after they jumped out of a moving helicopter with perfect eyeliner. So I hear you. That is the most important question. But yeah, they're really not going to answer it for us. So I get it. I think there are only 6 episodes of The Ones Who Live, not 8, so we are more than halfway through the series. Yeah, we are. In fact, the 6th episode is next week on Easter Sunday, and that will be the finale. So yeah, we are almost done. Went way too fast, right? The other day, I was really thinking about how dumb people against Bethyl are. Like, did we watch the same show? Still and Alone are definitely romance-driven episodes, plus Daryl never had what they showed us with Beth, with anyone else, not even Leah. Like, be for real, people. Also, people comparing Daryl and Beth to Daryl and Sophia always made me LMFAO because what? Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And this is something that I say pretty often, but I think it's less that they are being dumb, as you put it, and more that they are being spiteful. I think all of the carolers know very well that this was set up as a romance. They know very well that it's not going to be a Daryl and Carol thing. And they just railed really hard against Beth because it was so obvious that it was being set up as a romance. Like, I remember after season 4 happened, seeing all these articles come out saying Emily was a terrible actress. And I just kind of had to shake my head at how immature that was because, you know, you can think what you want about her acting, but the people who were saying that were clearly all carolers and anti-Bethers, and they did not think she was a bad actress until it looked like she was going to be Daryl's love interest. So it was very telling the way that this criticism was coming out, and it was just like, oh, shake my head, you know. The Daryl and Sophia thing actually came from something Kirkman said, and once again, people just take it really out of context, and they don't dig any deeper to really understand what Kirkman was trying to tell us. Now, most people think Kirkman's a jerk, and I've said all this before, so apologies if you've heard me say it and it's a repeat. I'm not even saying that he isn't a jerk. I don't think that's the point. He said Daryl didn't care any more about Beth than he did about Sophia, or maybe it was the other way. He said he cared as much about Beth as he did about Sophia, something like that. And it's not like we missed out on some great romance because she died. And people, especially, you know, our fandom, Bethylers and TDers, really took that as an insult and hated Kirkman. And I do understand, but I actually think Kirkman was talking in symbolic language there. He's trying to say, number one, that, you know, Daryl was searching for Beth just like he was searching for Sophia. And Daryl, his arc is a character who was always searching for people. So he was trying to tell us something about Daryl there. The fact of the matter is that Daryl did actually find Sophia. And granted, she didn't survive. But eventually, he did figure out where she was, right? So that's probably a hint. And then for the last line, I think what he was trying to say is that we didn't miss out on a big romance because she died. Number one, she didn't die. He's saying, like, if you just put the emphasis on different words, we didn't miss out on big romance because she died, right? It's not that. That's not what happened. But also, we didn't miss out on the romance because it's still coming. And I think he did, don't get me wrong, I think Kirkman did do it to rile everyone up, and also maybe as a way to try and shut down TD, at least for a bit, because we were much more vocal, and there was a lot more people who were believing she would come back then. Many of them have fallen off the wagon since then. But the point is, I think it was strategic, and I don't think any of it was a lie. And no, I don't think that he was trying to say that Daryl saw Beth as a child or as him as her father or anything like that. I think he was hinting at things and just being really symbolic and sneaky about it. But I get why people think otherwise. So yeah, but yeah, you're totally right that anybody who watched the show would know that what was between Beth and Daryl and Beth and Sophia was completely, I mean, I always go back to too, Daryl didn't actually know Sophia. I mean, he'd met her because they were in the same group, but it wasn't like he actually fathered her and spent time with her. Not at all, really. He was barely friends with Carol back then. You know, I mean, a lot of the relationship came out of the search for Sophia. So to even say that he was like a father figure to Sophia isn't really correct. And I get why people say it, because she was Carol's daughter and he was helping search for her. And he did have the line that said, "She wasn't mine." So you could tell that he felt protective of her, but just because he felt protective of her doesn't mean he was a father figure to her. Daryl's a protector by nature, and he wanted to find this child because she was innocent and because his heart went out to Carol for having lost her child, you know? So anyway, we'll try not to go too deep on that, but I completely agree with everything you said there, and, you know, word. All right, next one. How do you know if there will, or hey, do you know if there will be any meet and greet conventions of TWD in the near future? I live in Illinois, and I think the last time they came here was in 2018, but I still hadn't fell in love with the show, sadly. Of course, there was COVID after, but I just hope they'll do conventions again. Also, have you ever been to any? Sadly, no, I have not been to any. They usually did do a pretty big one here in Salt Lake. I'm in Utah, which is, I live about 30 miles north of Salt Lake, which is our biggest city, and it's really tiny. Our capital city is tiny compared to most other cities. I do know that they did tend to have a really big one because they have a Salt Lake Comic-Con that TWD was big at. But yeah, kind of the same as you, like when it was the biggest and when a lot of the big actors were there, I wasn't as in love with the show, and so I wasn't following it, and I wasn't even entirely aware that they were at Comic-Con. And then in the years after, when I did fall in love with the show and got on TD, they still had the Comic-Con up until COVID, but it seemed like there weren't very big actors there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to meet any of the actors in TWD, but these things are really expensive to go to, and if I'm going to spend that much money, I really want to be meeting like Norman or Andy, or the ones that I'm really, really excited to meet. So I just ended up never really investing in them because it was only kind of the more minor characters that were going to be there. And yeah, since COVID, I don't know that they've done it again. So I don't know of any particular ones, but I hope they do it again. They were always really successful. Everybody made a lot of money. So I hope so, and I hope I get a chance to go to one. I know they stopped doing the cruise, and ever since COVID, things just haven't 100% gone back to what they were. Don't get me wrong, here I know that we did have Fan X like last year, and I think the year before, but I'm not sure if The Walking Dead was in either of those, so I'll have to look into it. They usually have that, I don't think it's in the spring, I think it's in October, but I'll look it up and see what I can find. Beyond that, I wish that they would kind of get it together a little bit better with some of the conventions, because Comic-Con is its own entity, and they include anything that is sci-fi and fantasy and wants to be there. So, you know, that's why Walking Dead was always a big staple, especially at San Diego Comic-Con. But they always did those Walker Stalker ones before, and those were just Walking Dead. And I think that would be fun to go to one that is 100% dedicated to The Walking Dead and not anything else in the sci-fi universe. But I know that those shut down and went out of business because there was just a lot of problems with the way they were run. They weren't run by AMC, I don't think. It was more like AMC allowed them to be run, and they were probably taking a cut of the profits or something like that. But it seemed like there was a lot of corruption, and the actors weren't being paid right. And it was just like a lot of stuff that was just like, oh, don't do that. You know, if they're going to be that way, they do need to shut it down. But I wish they would revive it in a way that it is well run and really lovely, and that all of the fans and the actors could come together and have a really good time. I hope that they put something like that together in the future, but I have no idea of any plans for it. So unfortunately, I can't really answer your question. Just, you know, what I hope will happen eventually. Any tips on how to enjoy the world beyond? It's so awful, but I need to watch it to understand more The Ones Who Live. Currently mid-episode 2. It was so bad I turned it off. I don't think I could really answer this for you because I loved The World Beyond. I thought it was great. It is different characters, and maybe it'll just take you a few episodes to get used to them and really become invested in their stories. I could see that. Maybe watch the first 3 or 4 episodes and see where you're at. But by the end, I really loved all the characters, and I thought the way that they did the symbolism in it was very very beautiful. And, you know, maybe try looking for TD symbolism, because trust me, it's there if you pay attention to what they're telling you and what they're doing. In fact, look for, it's got to be at the end of the first season, but see, there was a deleted scene, and I'm not sure if they'll have it on whatever streaming service you watch, but there's a reunion between a couple who haven't seen each other in a while. I don't want to tell you and spoil anything. And let's just say that it was very clear that they were paralleling that with Beth and Daryl. And there was a deleted scene where one of them was running and tripped over a walker that was sticking out of the ground. So it was like, it was a graveyard, I think, and he was running through it and tripped and fell, and there was like a headstone, and there was a walker who was like partially out of the ground. I want to say like its head was out of the ground, or I can't remember exactly, but it was literally a walker coming up out of the ground, out of its grave. So it was obviously a resurrection symbol. I remember that there was yellow involved, and I think it was a blonde female walker. And then this couple had not seen each other for a long time, and they end up reuniting, and it was just so obvious that it was a Beth and Daryl parallel. And so things like that I saw all through it, and figured out a lot of, we all, you know, me and my fellow theorists, everyone who watched it together, figured out a lot of symbolism through the world beyond. There's symbolism, including art history symbolism and the Louvre in there somewhere. I don't remember whether it's season 1 or 2, but there's stuff that's pointing to what's coming up in Daryl Dixon season 2, which is going to be the stuff they shot at the Louvre. So there's just a lot of puzzle pieces there that kind of tie everything together. But like I said, I really liked it. I don't know that I was in love with it episode 2, but as it went on, I really, really liked it. I thought it was super interesting. So just do the best you can. It could be that it's just your personal preference and you're not going to like it as much. And I'm not going to say that I liked it as much as the flagship show. I mean, there's no Daryl in it, so of course we're not going to like it as much. But for what it was, I really did end up enjoying the story and the characters. So I hope that you can like it better, because I think it's worth watching. Let's do one more before we call it a day. Let's see. Hey, I just wanted to ask your opinion about the mysterious person in The Ones Who Live. I didn't see the show yet, but I've seen a spoiler. Do you think that might be Beth? I hope it's her, but I also believe it might be Morgan, since I know he said he would be looking for Rick once again. Please try to keep it spoiler-free if you can, because I'm still missing Fear the Walking Dead 7 and 8. Well, okay, so this is not going to post until after the next episode, which is episode 5, and I can tell you that it's not Beth, but it's also not Morgan, so that's not a spoiler either way, because he's not involved. It actually ends up being Jadis. So everybody should have watched it by now, hopefully. And I talk about that in my breakdown of the episode. So it's actually really, really interesting. I think the whole thing is really interesting, and that there are a lot of Beth parallels to it. So if you want to know what I thought about it, and the fact that it was Jadis, the fact that she went into the cabin and woke them up the way she did, the way that she's being set up as a foil to Beth, all of that is in my video analysis of episode 5, and you can just refer back to that. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it there for today, and I will be back in the next video with more answers to your questions. Bye!